It's time once again for another edition of Talk to Me. And now, here's Emmy himself, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Maynard Eaton.
Hello again, and welcome to Talk to Me. This is our weekly conversation with influencers in business, politics, culture, and today we have an influencer in education and politics. Welcome, please, Ms. Alisha Thomas Morgan, former state representative, and who is celebrating her birthday today. So, happy birthday, young lady.
Thank you very much, Maynard.
And for our viewers, this is our first time doing Talk to Me from somebody out of the country. You're vacationing in Mexico, is that correct?
That is correct.
Listen, you having some fun now, but you are a serious hard worker. Made a distinctive state representative. Made a difference there under the Gold Dome. What are you doing now? You're still in politics, kind of, right? Aren't you? You're helping somebody win office, are you not?
Yes. So I spent 12 years in the Georgia General Assembly representing Cobb County. Always got to shout out my folks in Cobb. Was the first African American elected from Cobb when I was 23 and served 6 terms. And I left the legislature, ran unsuccessfully for state school superintendent, but at the same time went back to school, got a master's degree in education leadership, and became certified as a school superintendent. So I left politics and went into public education for 3 years, and now I run a consulting business focusing on schools and education policy. Makes sense, right?
Yes, of course. Speaking of schools, this is a really trying time for educators with the pandemic crisis. You're working with schools. What's going on inside the school system? What are principals, teachers, and educators doing with regard to how students are coping with this new era of education?
You know, I wish I could say, Maynard, that this was a time of innovation and excitement and new ideas, because you would think where you have to depend heavily on digital learning or virtual learning, that you come and see all of these ideas. But frankly, that's not what's happening in schools right now. And I think it's more of a reflection of where public education is in terms of its status in this country, and a little bit of how outdated we are, and even the mindsets that we need to change. And so what's happening in schools is that everybody's struggling. Let's start with superintendents. I used to be one. They are having the toughest time because you can't make good decisions, right? You don't know what's going to happen with the virus. You know, if the numbers are going to go up and down, and you're making decisions for thousands of children and their families, essentially. In schools, you've got principals who are trying to manage devices and whether or not they work, and if this grade is, working today, is the system, the digital system working as a whole in the district. You have teachers who have not been trained just in terms of a profession on how to deal with digital learning and how kids learn virtually, and what's the difference between in-person instruction and what's happening, on these little computers. And then you've got parents who are also somewhat frustrated because they're trying to work from home. They need their own laptop. They may have 2 or 3 kids who also need a laptop so they can be in school, while also trying to manage Zoom calls and conference calls. And it's a mess. It's crazy. And my heart goes out to every single one of those groups. And I think, now it's just about having some grace and trying to figure this out together.
That's why I wanted to talk to you, because it seems like chaos in school systems, be they public schools, charter schools, elementary schools, high schools, and college. I know Clark Atlanta's having problems. How do your consulting fit in? What are you doing to help this trauma as a business person?
I do work with a couple of schools, and so I'm helping them do this one particular school I'm doing some turnaround work with, which started before the pandemic. And so for us, it was an opportunity to actually take the entire year off and say, we're going to figure this out the right way. And then we will welcome students back. And so for us, it's a restart. But it's also thinking about, as we start recruiting again, having an in-person option and a virtual option. And so I'm in a space where I get to be innovative in that particular environment. But I also work with school board members across the country in a policy program. I coach 7 school board members everywhere from school districts in the metro area, California, New Orleans, and what I'm doing is working with those school board members and helping them navigate, do we start school? Can we be in person? The fact that, thousands of school districts are ordering Chromebooks and they're on back order. And so they can't start school yet because they don't have enough devices for students. So what I'm doing is helping them navigate this moment that we're in, helping them make good decisions that are in the best interest of students, being sensitive about what the parents need, of course, putting the health first of everybody, and then all at the same time thinking about how challenging it is for lower income families and how in the heck they're navigating in this space when they got to go to work. They don't get to work at home. So they're trying to figure out how to go to work, how to make sure my kid has somewhere to go, and all of this in a policy setting. So how do you make good decisions as an elected official when it comes to COVID and education? So those are some of the projects that I'm working on. It's for me, it's exciting because I'm on the outside and I get to help advise people, but on the inside, it really is tough.
It sounds like it's traumatic for many of those actually involved in educating and parents primarily.
It is. It really is. And it's my hope, Maynard, that, maybe in a few more weeks when we get used to the system, all the IT folks who work for districts can figure out how to stop, the systems from going down. And then we can pivot and use this as an opportunity to figure out how we can reimagine education. Public education should never look the same after this moment. And if we think that we should just hope the numbers go down and we go back to doing things the way we used to, we have failed at what could have been a tremendous opportunity to reform, to change, to transform, to reimagine how we can be educating our students across this country.
A good friend of mine and yours is David Mitchell, who has book Other Outcomes for Our Kids. What are they doing? How do you, and you're a member, you work with them as well. How does a group like that impact what's going on in the schools or what's not going on in the schools today?
So book is better options for our kids, right? And if there's ever a time that we have to think about what are options for kids, as a parent, I am choosing Cobb County, which is where I live, just decided today or put out there today that in October they're going to open up in-person education. So as a parent, I have to choose what is the best option for my child. So first of all, let's talk about the fact that thank God I'm in a position where I do actually have a choice. I happen to work from home because I run my own business, and Layla Morgan is not going to school. I do not want her in an environment where I can't control where people are going, who they're exposed to. But there are a lot of parents who don't. And so this is an opportunity for an organization like Book, and I know they are doing this, to help parents know what their options are, even within this situation. Is virtual best? Do I need to put them in person? Is having a learning pod an option? Am I going to do virtual through the national virtual programs that exist, or is what is happening in my school district sufficient for my child? Should I send them to a private school? There are all these options that parents have, and their job at Book is to make sure that parents understand what these options are, that they are high quality, and just frankly that we should have options. That's the most important thing.
Do you give David Mitchell high marks for what he's done or his interaction with the Atlanta schools?
I give him high marks because David Mitchell is in a very sweet spot. For so long, particularly about charter schools, I mean, we're still having conversations in Georgia about whether or not charter schools are even public. Very old, outdated conversation. There are no charter schools in Georgia that are not public, right? So for David Mitchell to be sort of at the nexus of what parents need, and politics in Atlanta and politics in Georgia and who's Democrat and Republican and whose political agenda, blah, 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 blah. Here's a guy who's well known in Atlanta, from a prominent family. He gets to be a messenger to a group of people who would not otherwise understand this issue. That it's not about politics, it is simply about what is best for my child. And so I'm excited about their work and grateful for all the many people he's bringing to the table who need to be a messenger for this so that we can depoliticize having options for our kids.
You're also doing some political work for Joyette Holmes, a Cobb County District Attorney who was appointed by Governor Kemp. And she's now got a heck of a job, not only winning an election, but she's handling the Ahmaud Arbery case as well. Talk about that as a consultant.
So Joyette, as you said, was appointed by Governor Kemp. And what a historic moment it was for us in Cobb County. We have very few countywide appointed or elected officials. We've had a handful on the bench, all who were appointed first. And we actually just in this past primary election got our first two African-American and they are female judges elected to the Superior Court in Cobb. So it's an exciting time in Cobb. I'm so grateful that Governor Kemp had the insight to appoint someone that is so loved, adored, respected, and well regarded in Cobb County. So here's a woman who started out as a prosecutor, opened up her own firm, and then became a defense attorney. So she's had a number of different types of cases, all the way up through murder cases, earned the respect of many of her colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And then she was appointed Chief Magistrate Judge of Cobb County. Again, the first African-American and first female appointed to that position. She completely changed the way the court system works in Cobb County. So again, it speaks to what happens when you have good people in the right seats. So when you walk into a magistrate court in Cobb County today, you feel respected. There's a process in place that is smooth, that people are not treated like criminals from the moment that they walk in, and you get justice. That is what our courts are known for, the magistrate court in particular. And so I think her work has been seen by all kinds of people, including the governor, which is why he appointed her to this position. And if I could be really honest,
yes,
this is Cobb County. This is one of the most powerful positions that you can have. And there's a Black woman sitting in that seat. And you can imagine there are many white folks who are not expecting that appointment to be made. But she has come in with grace. She started programs like Project 360, which allows people to get their records expunged. And she's helped thousands of people in Cobb County be able to get a second chance. With that program, she's instituted the drug courts. And so she is doing the work that you want to be done in our justice system. And what I love about Joyette is that she talks about the fact that she's not just a prosecutor. She doesn't want her office to be about pushing paper. She wants to be about making sure that justice is done, that there's fairness, that our communities are safe. And so I'm excited. And Maynard, I have now been in politics for 5 years. I had a very brutal statewide election. Frankly, it took me a couple of years to heal from the ugliness of the race. But I believe so much in Joyette and what she's been able to do already, what she stands for as a woman, as a Black woman. She's a mom. She's got 2 teenage daughters. Like, she's me, just in a very powerful position who gets to make sure that the folks who need justice and need to be, locked in the jail are there. But those who need a second chance, who need drug courts or substance abuse programs, get that too. So I'm so proud of the work that she's doing. She is up for her first election in November, and I will do anything I can to help make sure that happens.
Politically, it's surprising to many that Governor Kemp would make that sort of decision to name her to that court. What do you make of that? A Black woman in Cobb County by Governor Kemp, a Republican.
Well, Joyette is a Republican, but okay. I think that had very little to do with it. And people, in fact, I've known her for 10 or 15 years. I didn't even know she was a Republican. until it came up. And I think it's because, and she would even say that her seat is really nonpartisan. But I strongly believe that the reason that she was appointed is because of her record. I was at the office the other day, and there was a well-known lawyer who's a white Republican, and her husband, who is a Democrat, and her husband is black, and so they're best friends, and they became friends because of the support that Joya has in the community. But I talked to them both about how do they feel that, here's a black woman who's up for this seat, is she going to be able to get the support of both groups? And they both emphatically said yes, because people know and love her. They respect her. Her record is impeccable. And the other attorney who was there talked about how much he came to respect her in working with her over the years, and how he's become her biggest fan, and they were there to actually go put out yard signs. So I think she was appointed because of her record, her experience, because she's brilliant, and because she has a heart for people. And I served with Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State and I was in the legislature. He happens to be a very moderate, he's a moderate elected official. And so I believe that when you look at his appointments across the state, you see a lot where he's appointed Democrats, Republicans, Black, Asian, LGBT. And so while I don't agree with some of the things that he does in politics, I absolutely appreciate the appointments that he's made, including Joya Holmes.
He also named her to take over the case of Ahmaud Arbery, right? I mean, that seems like a major responsibility for somebody who's running for office, relatively new in her position. What does she make of that?
It's tremendous. And the few conversations that I've had with her about this, the one thing that comes across is that she understands the gravity of her appointment to this case. She understands what's happening in this country. She told me one of the first things she did was go into her office, and she, manages probably 100, I don't know what the exact number is, mostly white people who live in Cobb, who've worked for the DA's office for a long time. And she sat them down to help them understand the magnitude of this case, of what it means to be Black in Georgia, in this country, so that they will have some sensitivity as they take on this case, which again speaks so highly about who she is and how she understands what her responsibility is here. I have no doubt, as I listen to all the conference calls she's got to be on, the trips that she's making down to that area, that we will get justice for Ahmaud Arbery. And I say we, I'm talking about as a community, as people who love justice, for people who know that this young man had a bright future that was stolen from him, and he now has someone who will be a guardian in that case, and to ensure that he gets justice. And let me also say, without going into details, that it's not been easy for her personally, for her or her family. You can imagine what it would be like for a Black woman to be appointed as the lead prosecutor on what became a national case, who has direct relations with the NAACP and other social justice organizations. One of the defense attorneys has already tried to remove her from the case because of her connection to the NAACP. So this is very serious. But I believe that from a spiritual standpoint, she is prepared. We are praying for her, and she absolutely has all of the qualifications and the ability, the capabilities to get justice for Ahmaud Arbery's family.
You are a former elected official and probably will run again, I hope. But has this been a year of the woman in politics, you think? We have a Black woman now and a vice presidential nominee. What are your thoughts of where Black women have emerged politically this year and prior?
I think it's always better, and I'm biased, but I always think it's better when there are women who are running for office and who are in positions of power, because we are less emotional, we are less egotistical, we are more about getting the job done. I just know that from being in politics for 12 years. It didn't matter the party affiliation. I could always count on women to just get to the point and get the work done. And so in this season where we're seeing so many Black women, many more who are running, I think the statistic I heard last week was that 60% of the women who are on the ballot in our primary, 60% of the people were women on the ballot this primary election. Speaks volumes to this moment that we are in, and some would call it a movement in this state and in the country. And I think it's perfect. It's exactly what we need. Because on top of being a woman, Black women are strong. We are powerful. We don't take no mess. We can code switch. We can get the job done. And we are powerful. I'm excited about seeing all the Black women on the ballot. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, so I'm excited about Kamala Harris. Joyette is also a member of AKA. I'm excited about her. So I think this is our moment. I think this is the time that everybody ought to get together. Men of whatever color you are, whatever party affiliation, support Black women, because you will see the difference that's made when we are in office and we are governing and we are making decisions to move us forward.
Ms. Morgan, when are we going to see you back in office? When are you running again? Georgia needs you. Look at that smile. Look at that smile.
You know, I miss public service. I really do. I miss having that platform. I miss being able to leverage my resources to help other people. I miss doing constituent services. You know, there's no feeling like being in the grocery store or at church and someone says, you know, because of your office, you know, you saved my house, or I was able to register to vote for the first time, or, you know, you sent me a personal letter back based on my issue. And so I don't rule it out. I told you that my statewide race was brutal. It hurt my heart. It took a couple of years to heal, but I'm healed. And I know that public service is a calling. And so I have no idea. I have no specific plans at this moment, but I have decided to be open and to be willing to serve when I am called. I am not one of those people that I run for everything because there's an open position. I believe in using my gifts and talents where they are needed and where they can be of value.
Alisha Thomas Morgan, we need you. We welcome you back whenever you decide to come. Thank you for joining us on Talk to Me, and happy birthday. Enjoy Mexico.
I sure will. It's so wonderful to talk to you again.
God bless you. See you next week, everybody. Take care.